Hello. It was literally so sunny before like the moment I decided to hit the record button. If you're new here, hello, my name is Iris. I'm non-binary. I use she, he, and they pronouns. I'm actually currently in the process of making a video about how to know if you are non-binary, but that is taking a little bit of time. So I wanted to do something a little bit different and talk about how I personally knew that I was non-binary. So this is less of a specific guide to tell if you are non-binary, but you might relate to parts of my story. So I had some thoughts that I could be genderqueer in high school, probably starting around when I was 16, and I actually had a couple genderqueer friends. I had like a non-binary friend, I had a trans friend, and so it wasn't something that was entirely out of the ordinary for me. I was in a pretty progressive school and community, and I had real life examples of like non-binariness and transness when I was 16, but I didn't really feel like I related to those specific peers that I had in my life. And because my experience in my gender was different than those peers, I think it actually kind of like kept me in the closet for longer than I would have been. I won't talk about specifics of like things I remember my friends saying, but I think I was really worried that I would be wrong and then I would end up like hurting my friends by being wrong about my gender identity. And I was also worried that they would think that I was like basically taking some of the attention away from them. So I was really worried about hurting my friends' feelings, and honestly, like it didn't feel like it mattered enough to me to like deal with that in high school. I was like, this is gonna go on the back burner. I think these feelings I'm having are real, but this just feels like too much to deal with right now. I'm honestly kind of glad I was not exploring my gender identity in high school. I think now, today, it would be a little bit different with the way that society has progressed. For context, I graduated high school like 6 or 7 years ago. But I was basically just like, okay, life is complicated enough. We're just gonna put this on the back burner, not worry about it. It's still gonna be there, but I'm just not gonna think about it. I'm just gonna vibe right now and not put any labels on myself, because that was also like really, it felt really complicated, and my friends were exploring different labels and I was just sort of like, this feels like too much for me. And then it wasn't until COVID summer, so 2020, that I started to really explore my gender identity again, because I had a lot of time alone to myself to think. I was staying at my parents' house and I spent a lot of time alone that summer, and for me that was like my sophomore year of college that I was really exploring this. And I did encounter a lot more trans and non-binary people in college of different types of experiences, and a lot of people who I went to high school with also started coming out at that point. I distinctly remember making these like fake little earrings because I didn't actually have my ears pierced at the time. They were just like simple loop earrings, and I was also like painting my nails black, which is something that I had done previously, and I'd always like thought of the painting my nails black as sort of like this masculine, like I'm wearing it but the way that a boy wears black nail polish. But I remember looking in the mirror with these earrings on, and it felt so significant, and it felt like it was like such an expansive experience. Like I was seeing myself in a new way that felt so true. And what I was seeing was I was seeing the bits of my gender in the mirror that didn't really feel like womanhood, but like boyhood. I've talked a little bit before about how sometimes the difference between gender euphoria and dysphoria isn't really about like how you're presenting or what you're wearing, but about your self-perception. Like I do not feel good like looking at myself as like a masc woman. I think that sometimes like people want to put the label masc on me, and that doesn't really resonate very well even when I am presenting in a more masculine way, because it feels like it is an implication of like masc as like masc lesbian versus what my experience is, which feels like the full spectrum of gender in one person. But I do feel really good like looking at myself as boyish, like a really boyish girl, which I feel like has a different connotation and more of an androgynous image associated with it. And I also feel comfortable looking at myself like as a boy with some more feminine features. And so I was looking in the mirror at myself with these earrings, and I'd never gotten my ears pierced, and it was suddenly like, I need to get my ears pierced. Like I love how I look and I feel like a boy, question mark. Also, like what's going on here? Can you guys hear the music in my neighborhood? They stopped right outside my window with their speaker. And so while perceiving myself, I'm kind of like shifting my own perception of myself in the mirror and feeling that in real time, I'm having these moments of like, oh, oh, this is real. This is what's going on. It's a gender thing. I was also seeing a lot more content online about gender at this time, and just like overall seeing like more like non-binary people online. I remember watching a video from Georgia Bridgers that she did with her sibling Hope, where they talked about sort of like non-binariness and gender. Like basically she was interviewing her sibling. And this is actually funny because I am now TikTok mutuals with Hope. It's kind of a full circle. But one of the things that Hope said in this video, which was extremely impactful for me in reckoning with my gender, was that when they were a kid, when they were in groups of like girls, that they never really felt like they were one of them. They did not feel like a girl in a group of girls. They were like a bit of an outsider in that kind of situation. And that definitely resonated with me. And this is something that I still experience when I am in a group of women. It honestly makes me a bit nervous. Like, don't get me wrong, I can be very socially present and connected in groups of women, but it does feel a lot of the time like a bit of a give and a take of like, how much am I going to lean into womanhood to make this connection work? And how much am I going to pull back into myself because I feel uncomfortable with the fact that it feels like there's this implicit need to do that when I'm connecting with women, of sort of like the shared experience, and yet my experience is also totally different from womanhood. It's sort of this feeling of being invited to the popular girls table, as in like, you know, somebody I really desire to know, not popular in sort of a weird connotation way. It's like I really desire to know this group of people or this person, and I really don't want to fuck it up, but at the same time I am struggling to feel like safe and accepted as I am, because I have been othered by women like a lot in my life. Sort of this lack of acknowledgement about my non-binariness, either because they don't see it right away or they just like don't think about the fact that there's some language that I don't love being used to describe me. I've got my notes on this, 2 phones. But the thing that really carried it home for me as I was sort of like questioning my gender and realizing like, okay, yeah, there's something real going on here, was on National Coming Out Day. One of my peers from high school, who is a trans girl but was identifying as non-binary at the time, which feels relevant because what she had to say really resonated with me from sort of a non-binary state of connection. But she tweeted something that was like so significant, like changed my life. Okay, a tweet. I would have gotten here nonetheless, but this was the pivotal moment for me. She said something like, I don't remember the specific words, but she said something like, "Happy non-binary day of visibility. Let's celebrate the bothness in all of us today." And that word, both, I wanted to be that so bad. Jealously. I thought it was like hot as fuck. I thought it was sexy. I wanted it. I wanted it so bad. I want to be that. And I remember after this, like going out to help my mom in the garden, and I was like struggling to keep the tears inside because I had just like affirmed this for myself. I had just chosen my path. Like, I feel strongly about this, that like my path was laid out before me, but I also chose it. I made the decision that this was something about myself that I was going to dive deeper into and bring farther out of myself. That was the thing about this that felt like a choice. And I know that using the word choice and associating with that with a gender experience, like that's really iffy for a lot of people. I understand that, and it's not like my gender identity itself was the choice, but moving into it after a while of being like, hey, that's going to be on the back burner, that was the choice I made. And that is the thing that really allowed me to encounter this new and old version of myself, this person who had always been here but was misunderstood. That is not something that you can turn around and take back afterwards. I had a little bit of time of like privately knowing my gender identity before I shared it with anybody, and I'm really grateful for that because it feels like it really solidified it for me. It made me feel unshakable, like no one could have introduced doubt to me because I knew what I was experiencing. Not a lot of people in my life would like whisper in my ear and try to like make me doubt myself, like no. But it gave me time to sort of like learn who I am and love who I am before introducing anybody else to the mix, because that's complicated. I gave myself space to settle before sharing. I'm really, really grateful to have such a kind and accepting family. My brother is trans, for those of you who don't know, so like we're both like just like brothers. I'm really, really lucky to have such an amazing, open-minded, close family. If you'd like to hear about my gender coming out story, let me know. It's actually pretty funny. I also didn't really talk about what my specific gender identity is besides the fact that I'm just like genderqueer or non-binary. And I do plan on talking about that, but just not today. You know, it's a can of worms. I know a lot of people like the more specific labels, and I do have one, but I generally have shied away from sharing it because things shift and change over time, okay? That's how it is. This is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If something resonated, That's okay. If you are questioning, that's okay. If you're cis, but you clicked on this video and watched till the end, that's okay. There are some questions that only you will be able to answer, and you get to do it on your own timeline. No one can determine that timeline for you. You get to decide. I love you all, and I will see you in the next one. I've been sharing music with you guys at the end of these videos. Let me see if I can muster something up. Yo.